You're listening to the Restoration Podcast, conversations of hope and healing. Join us as we talk about subjects dealing with ministry, faith, everyday life, and other hot topics. Our prayer is that these conversations bring encouragement to your life. All right, well, Hannah King, welcome. I'm so sorry it took us so long to get you on. You know how long ago we started this, right? Remember when the first one was?
It was actually a year ago. It popped up on my memories today.
That we were setting up for it, right?
Yeah.
And then we released our very first one in November. But I have to say thank you to you, because without you, it wouldn't have been possible. Like, you're the camera person. That is your forte. I know nothing about it, and you're good at lighting and all that, so you've been a big help, so thank you. All these episodes y'all see, Hannah's had a big part in it with cameras and lighting and stuff like that, so thank you. And, my gosh, the most important thing is the software we use to edit the video.
Yeah.
You taught me how to use it. I literally knew nothing about it. Seriously, so thank you for teaching me how to use it, because now we use it all the time for different things. So
you're doing a great job.
I appreciate it. Not really. I'm not.
No, you are.
She's being overtly gracious, but I appreciate it. I knew nothing about it, and so thank you for that. But can you maybe tell people who you are, introduce yourself? I know our in-house people know who you are, but some people who listen or watch maybe don't know who you are.
Yeah. So my name is Hannah King. I'm the media director here at Restoration Church. Basically, I just help run our social media and create graphics and just kind of fill in where is needed. So that's what I do. I also work at Walmart here in Sioux City, and so balancing both of those, it's really cool because I get to do the people aspect of things with my Walmart job, but then I also get to do that here, and it's just like a different aspect for both jobs, which I really like. Yeah.
You get to do ministry within the four walls of the church and outside the four walls of the church. You actually get to do it like that every week. Us pastors who are here full time, we're only here. I mean, we have regular lives outside too, but like when we're on the clock, you know what I'm saying? Yeah. So you are from Sioux City, correct?
Yes.
Born and raised here, and you have a family, correct? Tell us about your family.
Yeah. So we've lived here our whole life. So we got my mom, Cindy, and then my dad, John, and then my brother, JJ. And what's cool about JJ is he's adopted, and he just fits into the family so well. A lot of people always say he looks like our family, and they would have never guessed.
I'm one of those, by the way. I didn't know he was adopted until you all told me. I would, if you would never told me, I would have never known. But he does fit right in.
Yeah.
And your parents have, they both serve on the tech team. So thankful for them.
Yeah.
They do a lot. Cameras, Stream Pro in the booth, and it's really awesome. And you graduated from East High School here in Sioux City.
Yep.
And can you tell us the story of how y'all ended up attending here at this church?
Yes.
Because your family's here now.
Yeah.
But how did y'all end up coming here?
So my cousins and my aunt and my uncle, they used to live across from Bill Davis and Cindy Davis.
Our executive pastor.
Yeah. And their daughter, Michaela Davis, now Carson, invited one of my cousins to come here. And just from there, one of my cousins in that family invited me here. And then there was a night, we were going to a different church here in Sioux City, and there was a night where they were like, we need to only go to one church, because I would go to a service at that church, and then right after, my parents would bring me here. And so
to be in youth or kids at the time?
It's when they had missionettes.
Okay, so yeah, okay.
Yeah, so I'd go to the service at that church, and it would get over before we started here. And so then I would come here and
double dipping churches.
Yeah. And my parents were like, we can't do this. Like, let's choose a church. And so I came here. I just really felt like the Lord was I felt like I was learning so much. And so I was like, I want to keep coming and just growing with the Lord. And so it was really cool. my parents then started coming. They came on a weird Sunday. It was like a movie
It was a
Sunday or
themed
something.
Sunday.
Yeah. And Pastor Bill had made a song or whatever for that Sunday. And so my parents are like, I don't know why we kept coming, but it's just really cool to see that.
Yeah,
Even though it was a little weird that first Sunday they came back, and I feel like because of that, our lives have been transformed.
definitely.
Um, I don't think I would be sitting right here
Right.
as a media director, or even like college wise. I don't think I
Mhm.
would have gone to Evangel and
Right.
all that.
Yeah.
And it's just crazy to think that one step of asking.
Yeah, one little invitation from a little girl to another little girl, and then that your family ended up coming, and they've been here ever since.
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing. But you've attended this church for most of your life,
Yes.
correct? So
Yeah.
you're working at the church you basically grew up in.
Mhm.
That's really cool. And so then we have a few things we can talk about. I want to dive into your job, but we'll get to that. I kind of want to go in order. So you told us about how you got to this church, about your family. Um, can you talk a little bit about college,
Yeah.
how you decided to go, or because uh, you were considering a few different schools, right? Or never?
No. So
Have I ever asked you how you ended up at Evangel?
I don't think so.
So how'd you end up at Evangel?
So first off, I remember like Evangel came to camp all the time,
Yeah, youth camp.
and I would see them and I was like, this is so cool.
Yeah.
Like I want to go visit someday. And so I knew I wanted to go there in high school, but I don't know with COVID, because I graduated in 2020
Uh,
when COVID hit. And so with COVID and just like the fact of going 8 hours away was really scary. And so I went to a WIT for a semester, but in
our
the back,
community college here in town.
yeah.
Mhm.
But in the back of my mind, I was like, I need to go. And so I remember sitting in the car with a friend one day, just
Mhm.
talking about how I wanted to go so bad, but I felt like I couldn't go for
Hmm.
whatever reason. And so they were like, why don't you go? Like,
Mhm.
do it. And so this was then spring 21.
Mhm.
And I ended up going. And I think it was, just looking back, it was all God's timing.
Mhm.
timing. I met some of my best friends during that semester.
Oh yeah, definitely.
And
College friends or lifelong friends.
yeah. And like my suite mates, um, it was just we had to stick with our suite mates at the time
Mhm.
because of COVID. Like you couldn't
Oh yeah.
go anywhere else really. You couldn't go to the other dorms
Your
or
first
whatever.
school year at Evangel was 2021 or 21-22?
Spring 21.
Okay, so fresh out of pandemic.
Yeah.
Okay.
There was still like a lot going on. Like we had to be spaced out and
Mandates,
stuff, and we had to have
masks.
our mask.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, but what was cool is my whole suite. We were all new
Uh-huh.
that semester, and so we were all figuring out.
Experiencing all that together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They were sophomores, and I was like a half a freshman or whatever you want to
Because
call
you
it.
had some credits or whatever
Yeah, well,
transferred.
yeah, I transferred the credits, but I
Yeah.
also had a bunch from high school too.
And then what was your major? I always forget. I can never remember.
I majored in visual and digital arts, and then a minor in photography.
So some people may not know what majoring in visual and digital arts means.
Yeah.
What is that? What do you dive into as in that major in that
Mhm.
field?
I always explain it to people just as like graphic design with a
Okay.
few video, photo classes in the mix. It's
Yeah.
basically just anything communications.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Did you learn a lot at Evangel?
I did. I feel like I learned the most with my workshops
Yeah.
and then my like extracurriculars. Like they had the Lance, the newspaper at
The
the school, and
newspaper.
then
Yeah.
Excalibur, which was the yearbook. And so diving into that, I think, was really what
Yeah.
grew me because it was like extra time. And so,
Yeah.
and it really just challenged me,
Yeah.
which was cool too.
And then Evangel also makes movies. You were part of that too, correct?
Yeah, I was part of the EU films.
Yeah.
We made a movie, and like I feel like that really helped prepare me for this
What
job.
you do now?
Yeah,
Definitely.
I was terrified of it.
I mean,
at
it's a big
first.
task. Yeah.
Well, and like I had never used Premiere, like the video software.
That's what we use. Yeah.
Yeah, and so that's
Man, now look at you.
that's literally all I
You're
did
the
for the
premier wizard.
movie.
Yeah.
I feel like there's so much you can still learn,
Oh yeah,
but
that's there's so much you can do.
but at least the basics
But
and
that's what
stuff.
introduced you to it was, yeah.
Yeah, so I took a few classes in high school, and that's how I started to learn, but I tried to avoid it at all
Yeah.
costs because it was a lot.
Yeah, it can be overwhelming.
Yeah.
But this is totally a day and age where that is kind of an area of need, definitely. Whether you're a church or a business or a school even, I've noticed everyone is stepping up their game in promotion and communication.
Hmm.
Like my school district back home, I mean, we did do some of that when I was there, but they've stepped it up with their graphics and videos and stuff. It's just such a vital way to reach people, which is what every business and church and school wants, you know? So that's amazing. Do you remember the first time you met me? Because I remember.
I don't.
I think it was the first time. So I mentioned my history before. I'm married to Pastor Johnny's daughter, and so I've had a, believe it or not, like an 11-year long relationship with this church. Crazy. But anyway, I knew certain members, and I knew of you. So if I saw you, I'd know, oh, that's Hannah King. She goes to, at the time, Morningside. But I think you were home for either summer or Christmas break from Evangel. And I think you just came up to me. I had just gotten hired, actually, 2021. It was in the fall. And I think you introduced yourself to me. And I was like, oh, hi, nice to meet you. And I was like, who? Like, I knew who you were, but I was like, why is she talking to me, in a nice way? Like, I was just curious. And then once I found out you went to Evangel, that opened the floodgates because I had something to relate to you with.
Mhm.
Then when you told me you were in band at Evangel, that just it went even further. So I remember that the first conversation we had, and you were the one that actually opened my eyes to the importance of reaching out to people, reaching out to your volunteers, reaching out to your church members. You literally said, and this is exactly what you said verbatim. You said, "quote It makes a big difference when you reach out to someone." And you were telling me about how excited you were for Morningside's future, all the changes that were happening. And I was like, oh, you're at Evangel or whatever. And then fast forward a little bit, and you reached out to see if we could help you with. You wanted to be an intern here, correct? What was the thinking behind that?
Yeah,
Can you talk about
so
that a little bit?
yeah, well, at Evangel you have to do an internship.
Uh-huh.
And I remember just driving home from like Evangel for spring break or
Hmm.
something, and our president at Evangel, Rakes,
Yeah.
he had talked about having big dreams and
Hmm.
just like having God-sized thoughts. And I just asked the Lord to help me like find a place for my internship. I was like, what am I gonna do?
You literally had no idea, right?
No.
Like, what am I gonna do?
And so I had done an internship with Pastor Ben
Yeah.
in high school, and I was like, why not do it again, but in
Yeah.
a different way and see
Yeah.
what happens.
Yeah.
And so I reached out, and it's funny because I thought at the time I was gonna be doing it with Ben again,
Yeah. You did
but
ask him,
then
right?
yeah, but
Yeah.
then we had met and like a group of us,
Yep. I
and we
remember.
were like, well, I have these tasks, and I was like, I want to stay in Sioux City. I, it was just a lot to like drive to Elk
To do
Point and
both.
stuff,
Yeah.
and yeah, or do both,
Yeah.
yeah. And so I was like, and I wanted to get to know you better too, cause like
Same. Yeah.
I had, I felt like I was gonna come back here at some point,
Yeah.
even if that was for like
Yeah.
winter or whatever. I didn't
Yeah.
know I was gonna come back and
Right.
like work here,
The Lord's
but
funny.
yeah,
Yeah. So you interned for it was the summer, correct?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
So Hannah was a big help. What's funny is now that we look back, she basically was doing what she does now, but just wasn't getting paid for it. Basically, internship. And um, I learned a lot from you too, because you made suggestions on little things that people don't really think about, and we both kind of helped each other through that internship, and you did a lot. And then like with busy weeks with like funerals or stuff like that, there's always other little tasks that come up, and I'm like, well, Hannah can probably do that. So you did the internship, and then that was when we first discovered your photography skills too, and we were excited because at the time we did not have a media director, and we really wanted to up our game on our social media platforms
yeah.
because I don't know if you remember, but we had someone that was doing it, and that person had left on a different assignment, so that role was floating around.
Hmm.
And all of us pastors that work here full time, every one of them is busy. Okay. No one's more busier than the other. Does that make sense? Kids pastor, worship pastor, whatever. We're all very busy. And so none of us really had the time to make quality content for our social media. So it kept getting floated around, and it was very inconsistent and just kind of random. And to be honest, I'm gonna be very late. We were very late with stuff. We had an event October 1st. We talked about it. Let's promote it the week before. We had no one dedicated to that. Anyway, so you came, intern, and you started taking pictures, and we're like, this is amazing. Like, we need this. And this is true. This is the truth. I remember after your internship, you had left. And the next week, when you weren't at the office, I went to Pastor Scott, our youth pastor's office. I sat down. He looked at me very seriously. He said, we need to find a way to bring Hannah on the team officially. Like, her stuff is amazing. Look at this. And so that's when the conversation started. You didn't know this, but you had left, or maybe you had mentioned it. But I talked with Pastor Johnny. I said, hey, did you like what we had? He's like, yeah, it's great. I said, we need to seriously consider having that on a regular basis. And so he's like, well, put together a description, a title, what would it look like, and just present something to the board, because we keep the church board in light of everything that's going on. They're aware of things, and so fast forward a little bit more, and I was eager and anxious. And I think you were asking because had you graduated or you were about to graduate and wanted to know what was next. I can't remember.
So in October of 22, I did like a mock interview because I
That's right.
needed to,
Yeah.
and I was like, I'm just gonna do one with PJ.
Yeah.
Like, why not? And so I think that kind of opened the
Yeah.
door a little bit too.
We were all kind of aware that it was a possibility, but it
Mhm.
wasn't, quite real. And I think we
Yeah.
were in communications because
Mhm.
you're like, I'm going to graduate. I need to know what my job's going to be.
Mhm.
And so I'll never forget. They said, okay, put it together. And PJ was like, can you go to the board meeting and explain what this role is? And I went. I was a little nervous, but I explained it, and immediately they were like, oh, yes, definitely. And now here you are, our media director. So I've told Hannah this before, but we've never had a media director before, and so very much we're building the plane as we fly it. But it is so vital. I mean, and I have to say this too. You've done an amazing job. You've really upped our game on social media, on content, on connecting with people, and you even created a media team, which is amazing. I would have never thought of that. Okay,
They're
so
doing a great job
and
too.
they're great. And I just have to tell you, you're doing great. You're really rocking it. And I think everyone would agree because the content you put out has really caught a lot of eyes, caught a lot of attention, and it's really helped in this new season of our church because we're kind of in a transition. So thank you for all that you do. Seriously, it's great. So just for a minute, can you kind of explain what it is you do? I know you said that earlier, but what does the media director do throughout the week? What does your
Yeah.
schedule look like? It's kind of unique.
Yeah, I feel like it varies from week to
It's
week,
true.
but some of the main stuff I do is like our sermon graphics. I help get that ready for Sunday mornings, and then I
Which, hang on
also
a second. I'm sorry to interrupt you. Before you came, we we just put projected notes on like a gray background and white text. That was it. It looked the same every week. Maybe I highlighted some text. When Hannah interned, we did this series out of the book of Revelation, the seven letters, the seven churches, and you said, "Can I change up the look?" I was like, "Sure." And ever since then, that's why our sermon graphics look as awesome as they do was because of you. So thank you for that. Because before it was just gray and white, gray and white every week, and I was like, and then when you did that, it popped, and so thank you for that.
yeah, there
That's
was a week before that we did it too, and like looking back, I'm like that was awful, but like
back then.
it's
Yeah,
kind of nice to see like the progress
how
too.
far we've come.
Yeah,
Yeah. So anyway, sorry to interrupt you. So
it's
you
okay.
do sermon notes, graphics, and what
Yeah.
else?
So I'll prepare social media posts.
Yep.
Um, I do a Sunday recap every week,
Yeah.
and so I try to do something different, whether
Hmm.
it's a video or just some pictures.
Yeah.
Um, Currently I'm working on like a centennial
Yeah.
video.
That's the big project.
Yeah. And so that's been like my main focus the last few weeks, but
Months.
yeah.
Let's be honest. Come on. Yeah.
Yeah. Um we got some more videos coming up in the next
Yeah.
few weeks too. So preparing for that. And Christmas is just around the
Yeah.
corner,
That's a
so I'm
lot of
sure
work.
so
Yeah.
I'm sure we'll be doing
Yeah.
some stuff there too. I help out with the podcast when I can.
Yes. Thank you, God. Thank you, Lord, that you help.
And then Sunday mornings I just kind of hop wherever needs
Hmm.
it. Sometimes I'll be taking pictures, sometimes I'll be helping in the booth or
Yeah.
just wherever.
And that's something else I told the board and Pastor Johnny was Hannah knows how to do everything in the booth, basically, even a little bit of sound. But like, for example, I'm usually the go-to tech person, but I'm also the worship pastor. So if there's a tech issue, but it's during worship, I'm stuck on the platform. So Hannah has multiple times saved the day on a Sunday or Wednesday when something's going wrong. You can see her going back there to address it. And so that was another important part of this role. And it's unique that every church has a different title, media director, or what are some others you've seen?
Communications
Yeah.
director.
I saw one that was called like content pastor or
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
And every church is unique, and so they have different roles. But Hannah, we're just blessed that she, she's not just a photographer. She does so much more than that. Okay, yes, she takes pictures, but she does a lot more than that. And not only that, but she's also musical, and so she plays keys sometimes on the worship team. Thank the Lord. Anytime we can gain people in the worship team, I'm saying thank you, Lord, and you've done that. Played on Wednesdays, even, and then you played saxophone for Christmas Eve last Christmas. Thank you so much for that.
Thank
And
you.
so we can connect on that. And if you're a band person in my book, you're up there, okay? If you're an instrumentalist, and so we connected on that. And you also let me borrow your saxophone for one of our choir Sundays.
Yeah.
Oh my
You
gosh.
did so good.
Oh, thank you. I've hung it up since. It's not happening again.
It was just so cool because like that's not your main
It is
instrument.
not.
And
And
so for you to just pick it up and learn
oh well,
something,
thank you.
man.
But thank you for letting me use it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but Hannah does a lot as our media director, and like I said, started a media team. What was the idea behind that? Do you remember? Because at first, when you got hired, it was just you.
Yeah. I really wanted to just have a different way for people to volunteer, but
Yeah,
also like it can be a lot on your own.
on one
And so
person.
having a team to help you do that, I feel like is just so important no matter what like
Hmm.
area you're in. Having people you can lean on,
Oh yeah,
um, it's really good. Like when I was on I went to camp for a
yeah,
week or whatever and knowing that I have a team that I can trust,
yeah. When you're out of town,
yeah,
yeah,
is is great because then you're like, I believe in you. You
yeah,
got this. And so, like, equipping people
uh-huh.
to be able to do that, I think is so important.
Yeah. And they did a great job when you were gone,
Yeah.
and I'm sure your mind was at ease when that happened. And so, yeah, and a few other exciting things that I have to give you credit for that we've done. One of them was IMAG. I don't know if you remember that. Those of you who don't know what IMAG is, how would you describe that? I do a terrible job explaining that. What is IMAG?
So basically, IMAG's just when we hook up our cameras and then like it goes on the big
On
screen.
the main
And
screen.
so we use that for like baptism
Yeah.
or Christmas services, that kind of stuff.
So there's another worship pastor in town who I connected with. And so for those of you who are wondering and curious, we currently have two manned cameras. Is that how you would say it?
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
people, volunteers run.
Hmm.
And then we have a camera in the drum cage and a camera on the keys. And so there was another worship pastor in town who's similar like me. He does worship and tech. And he's like, "Hey, have you ever thought about having a mobile cam, which is the camera that you see, an operator that can go everywhere?" And how would you describe that? I'm not good at describing that. A mobile cam.
I think you described it
Okay.
pretty good. You're just like moving around.
Yeah.
It's not like it's in one spot.
Yeah. So you can. Those are the ones where you see like they're on the platform and they get a really cool shot of behind the singers or whatever. And to be honest with y'all, I was like, no, I don't want that. You remember this?
Yeah,
It's like that's not
I
necessary.
didn't think
You
we would ever do it.
right? And so then he actually came one day to connect with. We've connected on multiple occasions, but he came and he brought all this gear, and I'm like, "What is that?" And so we spent the morning. I showed him our setup, and because I'm very transparent. I'm very new to all this, and in this role, I didn't know about it. And he came and he's like, "Okay, cool, I like that." And he made suggestions and like said a lot of nice things. And and then he goes, I was like, "You ready for lunch?" He's like, "Yeah." He's like, "Can I show you something real quick?" I was like, "Yeah." He's like, "Where's your camera switching stuff at?" I said, "In the back." So he brought a camera on a gimbal, which is, what would you say a gimbal is? A camera stand, basically.
Yeah, like basically it just stabilizes the
Yeah.
camera. So
Actually,
if you
his was
move.
on a cage, technically. Anyway, he brought a camera and he had it hooked up to this transmitter. And he's like, "I just need to know where your switcher's at." And so we went to the back and he hooked it up. He goes, "Okay, pull up your stream on something." And so I pulled it with my laptop. He goes, "Watch this." He goes, "Let's go to your sanctuary." and he had a mobile cam set up, and he goes, "Watch this," and he showed me like all these cool angles and stuff, and I was literally speechless. I was like, "I want this. This would be amazing for Christmas Eve because we're gonna have the worship choir." And so he left. I was like, "Can you send me links to those transmitters?" Asking for a friend, you know. And so he sent it. And so anyway, I need to condense this. So anyway, long story short, we got that, and we knew we wanted to do it for Christmas Eve, and so we did it. And there was an issue with our setup. I don't know if you remember this. And so I wanted to do things the really quick way, but there was going to be a lag. You remember this? And so it was pretty bad. It was like 1 second, which doesn't sound like a lot, but it would drive you
Yeah,
nuts.
it's bad.
So like a person on the stage moves their mouth, and then 2 seconds later on the, you know, and I was like, it's fine, we'll make it work. And then I got sick, stayed home, and you were adamant. You actually did research on how to do it properly. Remember that?
Mhm.
You asked a friend from Springfield that
Yeah.
does iMag,
Mhm.
and she explained, right?
Mhm.
And you're like, Aaron, I know how to do it. And I apologize now because I kept putting it off. I was like, no, because we had to run a cable all the way from the back to the booth. I did not want to do that. And you're like, we got to do it right. And I was like, nah, we have a quick fix, you know?
Mhm.
And so then I got sick and I was stuck at home. And you and Ben spent a day, ran it. And I'll never forget that day. Y'all sent me a video. It was like, look, no lag. And so we have to give you and Ben credit for that, for our iMag. And now we do it, like we said, once a month.
Yeah.
And that's a really huge, huge thing.
Yeah.
And I, like you, never thought we'd do that.
Yeah, I'm just glad. Basically, like, what happened was Ben was just like, here's where you need to run it, and
Yeah,
here's how you do it. And so I spent the time just running that
yeah.
cable. And once we got it,
That's
it's
the thing too
just so
about some of
cool.
these is it's so much hard work initially, but once you do it, you only have to do it once.
Yeah.
There's a lot of projects like that in the tech world
Mhm.
where you want to make changes or whatever. But anyway, Hannah is sometimes works that mobile cam, and some of her media people sometimes work it too.
Mhm.
And it's been a learning experience. You know, the gimbal thing it stands on has to be balanced and it has to charge. And um, you were actually gone Easter, and you had the camera that we're
Mhm.
recording now is what we use it for. And so I wanted it for Good Friday, but we had a different camera, and I did not know how. Again, I don't know how to do this. So we tried it, but like you could see like a little cross. It was trying to focus on faces, and I was like, "Oh, this is embarrassing." And so, you know, that just shows how important you are because that's what happened when you were gone or whatever. So thank you for that. But your media team has really upped our game, I think. I know with our content, and it's great to see more people get involved. What I also love about your media team, and I'll let you talk about this, is it's all ages, right? Can you talk a
Yeah.
little bit about that?
Yeah, it was kind of funny because originally I didn't have kids on my team, but there's some worship team members that have a few kids and they
Mm-hmm.
come early,
Mm-hmm.
and so they were like, "What are you doing?" Because I was like
Yeah.
getting set up for stuff, and I was like, "Well, this is what I'm doing." I was showing them the production stuff at first,
Yeah.
but then I was like, "I have a few cameras that are not being used.
Yeah.
Like, do you guys want to like walk around and take pictures?" And they were so excited, and so every time they're there now,
They
like,
ask,
yeah,
"Can we take pictures?"
and it's like sometimes you're like, that's not great, but the fact
Gotta
that
start
they
somewhere.
have the opportunity to start like that,
And the willingness.
yeah, and like I feel like you get better each time.
Mm-hmm.
Like you just have to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's kind of how it started for me though too, because
Sure.
I started in middle school,
Yeah.
and Pastor Bill was like, "Do you want to run camera?" And
Huh.
I was like,
That's how it started, huh?
"Yeah." I was like, "Sure." And so like just giving people the opportunity to like
Yeah.
try stuff
Mm-hmm.
out, I think you can really just help grow people's giftings that way.
Just gotta give them opportunities.
Yeah.
Everyone has to start somewhere.
Mhm.
We were just at a network council meeting earlier this week, and we have a new superintendent, and he was sharing about the time when he was a lead pastor for the first time and how nervous he was to run a board meeting and to do a funeral and stuff. It's like that no matter what your job is. You got
Yeah.
to start somewhere.
Mhm.
Which, speaking of that, when you were interning at the time, we were like, this is amazing content. But now when you look back, what is your reaction?
It's bad. I'm like,
Because you've grown so much since then, right? And
well,
learned a lot.
I think the equipment too,
Oh,
like,
yeah, that's another.
changes things because I'm like, why was I using that? Or like, why was I doing that? And so now I'm like, this is great. This is a lot
Yeah.
better. And so it's just cool.
I remember the other big project you had during your internship was updating like our countdown video
Mhm.
because we had the same one for like 2 years, and I'm like, we need. What was this? What did I tell you about when you're interning?
And
What did I
your
tell you? You
saying
can say it.
was, we have a hard time, we have trouble letting go.
Yes, I said it a lot. I said, Hannah, you're gonna learn this. We have trouble letting go
Mhm.
in the ministry if something. And I'm still a firm believer if it's not broke, don't fix it. But I'm talking about other little things that are not that difficult to change,
Mhm.
like a countdown video, which was the same for 2 years. And so Hannah got all this new footage, and I'm like, well, put it together and give us something new. And since then, you've made two or three,
Something
probably
like
two,
that. 2 or 3, yeah.
and we're working on another one now because you've got tons more photos and video
For
footage,
sure.
and so we're gonna not we she's gonna put something new together for that for the upcoming uh, quarter or something.
Mhm.
But it's been great to see that. I also remember after your internship, you had to put together a little presentation. It was like a little trifold thing.
Yeah, so I actually after my internship, I did like a what was called a capstone project.
Yes,
It's
that's
like
what
a
it
big
was. That's
senior
right.
project, and
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
I was like, "Can I I asked to do more with the church." And
Yeah.
so that's where the countdown
Yeah.
video came in.
That's what it was. Yeah.
And then I was also here for 3 weeks, and so I took pictures for those 3
Yes.
weeks. And so yeah, just
Yeah.
got to grow that. That was
That's what it was. Your
yeah.
internship and then a capstone, which is
Yeah.
basically a big project
Mhm.
required for graduation,
Yeah.
and then you got the job. Crazy, right?
Yeah.
Crazy. And so we're like I said, it's a new thing, and we're still figuring it out. And I told Hannah, I said, you're plowing the ground for the next media director. She's not going anywhere, okay? But I'm just saying, in the future, we always have to be ready.
Mhm.
And so after your tenure, we'll know to explain things how it's expected and stuff like that. And so the cool thing about today's day and age too is you can do so much anywhere, correct?
Yeah.
You don't have to be at the church to do what you do, correct?
Mhm.
Do you often go to like coffee shops or
At least once a week.
and get a lot done?
Yeah, I feel
Yeah.
like I just focus more sometimes.
Somewhere different.
Yeah. My
Yeah.
go-to place lately has been Qdoba.
Qdoba
Yeah.
because they have free Wi-Fi.
Yeah, they have free Wi-Fi, and
Yeah.
then like I just get the kids meal because it's
That's a
cheaper, and
great
so
value.
that's where I go.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's this day and age. The beauty of a media director is she
Yeah.
doesn't have to be at the office to create a video or work on a graphic. She can
Mhm.
do it even from home, right? Which is a blessing and a curse. Because I don't know about you, I'm gonna be transparent. I sometimes have trouble stopping working,
Mhm.
which again, it's twofold for many reasons. One could say, "Oh, that just means you love your job," which is true,
Mhm.
right? I do love my job, and I do love editing podcast audio or creating a thumbnail or whatever. But at the same time, I try to leave work at work, but it's really difficult. Have you found that's hard?
Yeah. I don't have internet at my house,
Oh,
so
well, that
that's
that
about
helps.
that
Maybe
helps
I
a
should
little
do
bit.
that. No.
So if I want to actually do something, I have to go and
Oh,
like
it takes effort.
yeah.
Oh, hmm,
So I feel like that helps to like
sure.
just decompress.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To not do work.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's hard though.
Sometimes I work on something like, oh, I got to leave the office at 5 and I leave at a good time. Then I go home and I just pick up where I left off. It's a bad
Yeah.
habit. But again, I enjoy doing it. I don't see it as work sometimes,
Yeah.
which one would say that means you are doing what you love to do, you
Mhm.
know? Um, but yeah, so thanks for all you do.
Yeah.
Seriously, it's a lot.
It's my pleasure.
Yeah.
I love it.
There's one more thing I was going to ask you about. We have some time, I think, enough time. Since you touched a little bit about it earlier, when you were moving from Sioux City to Springfield,
Mhm.
how you were nervous to do that. Was that kind of a big move for you?
Yeah, like going to a place where I knew nobody.
Yeah.
Like I've lived in Sioux City my whole life, and
Yeah.
so doing that was a big step.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then you got used to you got established in Springfield, friends, a church,
Mhm.
and then you came back, right? And those were 2 seasons of transition, is what we call
Mhm.
them. And so, what was that like? Let's do the first one. So, moving from Sioux City to Springfield, what was that like?
I feel like that one was a lot easier because it was like a fresh breath of air where
Yeah.
like cuz COVID was just hard.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think something different than just
Yeah.
being here in Sioux City was really good for me.
Yeah.
And I'm an extrovert, and so
Mm-hmm.
like this was a great opportunity for me to like just meet a bunch of people, And so I feel like that transition wasn't as hard.
Mhm.
I adapted pretty fast. Whereas the transition back home,
Mhm.
that was a little bit harder.
Why is that?
I feel like when I came back, I'm a different person. Like,
You are.
not completely, but like just I feel like the Lord moved
Mhm.
in so many different ways, and like I felt like a lot stayed the same here.
Mhm.
And so that I think was hard because like you feel like things are gonna be different when you get back, or just like I don't know.
Mhm.
Yeah, it was hard, and um, I think after COVID, just like relationships, like kind of just cut off like everything, and so like
Yeah.
I didn't have a lot of friends when I came back,
Mhm.
and so just like having to build that community up from the ground again
All over again
was
in your
hard.
hometown.
Yeah,
It's almost like a slap in the face. Like, I'm from here. Why do I feel so lonely?
yeah.
You and I had multiple conversations about this and similar topics. And I remember telling you, like, it's an awkward season when you're in college. It's the most wonderful, but also the most awkward. It's wonderful when you're at school. Not awkward. What's a better word? Not conflicting. There's surely a better word. It's a wonderful time, but it's also different and difficult, challenging. Different. How many words can I throw out there? I'll just describe what I'm saying. Because you have two homes, you're split. You go to Evangel, you're like, I'm home, right?
Mhm,
You go through the school year, and then Christmas break, summer break, again, you're like, I'm home. But then you long for the other home while you're at this home, and then you long for that home when you're at this home,
mhm,
and then all of a sudden you graduate, and your hometown, and the other home is gone,
mhm.
it's taken, and then the home you're at here, it's you said things stay the same. I beg to differ that things change. Everyone still ages. Time still goes on when you're in
Yeah.
college, and so like you said, you come back. That relationship that was once so strong, no
Mhm,
longer as strong,
mhm.
right? And seasons of transition, I think, are really difficult for some people, not as difficult for others. I can relate to this because I'm married to a person who not struggles, transitions are more difficult for my wife than they are for me. And we had similar things when we moved states. It was really hard. It was just to be transparent, it was very difficult because again, we had established connections and stuff like that. And you went through the same thing, but you came back to your hometown.
Mhm.
What got you through that season? And would you say you've gotten over that since?
I feel like it's a process.
Yeah.
It's almost like grieving like something you lost,
Mm-hmm.
cuz it's like you get so used to it, and like um but like you said, it's different but it's the same too.
It's
Like
awkward.
yeah, cuz it's like you
It's
don't
unique.
feel like time has moved on,
Mm-hmm.
but it has.
Yeah.
Um and I feel like what got me through is just like the Lord,
Oh yeah.
and just really thankful for you and Tori. I feel like that helped a lot,
Oh
and then my
sure. Yeah.
family. Um, but just continuously just showing up and
Yeah.
just like continuing to press through and
Mm-hmm.
just try to build connections
Yeah.
and just finding different ways of connecting with people that
Yeah.
I might not normally think of.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and just I say this a lot, but just being intentional with people.
Yeah, that's a word she used a lot. And I didn't realize the impact of intentionality until you pointed it out actually. So thank you for that. And ever since you brought that up back before you interned, I've tried to be more intentional even with my volunteers. So thank you for that. But seasons of transition are no fun because but here's the thing to encourage you. This is to spread hope and healing. They're temporary,
Mhm.
right? You're not forever in transition. That's not how we were called to be, you know? We had a pastor in Springfield, Pastor Jeff Peterson, and he did this sermon series called Places. We never forgot it, and it was amazing. And he talked about all the different locations in the Bible and how the characters went through what they went through in those locations. And I can't remember the specifics, but one of them was like a transitional thing. He's like, it was not meant to be uh, permanent; it's just temporary. And then fast forward a little more, I went through a very awkward season, but it was short. Again, they're temporary. It's not forever when you're in transition. Just hold, like you said, the Lord will help you through it. He'll guide you through it. But I had graduated from Evangel. Then I went back to Houston and I subbed for a spring semester. Then I found a full time job in Springfield. So I moved back to Springfield and I was engaged, but we weren't married yet. So Tori still lived here. So from August until November, I lived by myself in an apartment. and that was interesting. That was interesting. And so I'll never forget. I had my family. We packed up. My sister was pregnant and with her first kid, and we packed up a U-Haul. Everything I owned fit in one U-Haul. That's funny. That won't happen today. And so we drove the very familiar drive to Springfield because I had just done that 4 or 5 times. They unpacked me, and it hit me then. I was like, my life's about to change.
Mhm.
Like, I'm about to say goodbye to the people I lived with for the past 18 years,
Mhm.
19, 20 years. And so they spent the day with me, helped me move in, whatever, and then they left me, and that was it. It was just me in this apartment. And I'm like, this is an awkward time. This is like, I'm about to be married, but not yet. It was August. I had to wait until November. And I'll never forget, I went to Central, the church we attended, and I was like, I really need something. Hannah, I'm not joking. Okay, I got to look these notes up. Pastor Jim goes up. He's like, okay, today's message is called In Between. I'm going to talk about what biblical characters did when they were in between seasons. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. And I meant to look that up because I knew we were going to talk about this. But he gave really great counsel. And what I liked about it and why I bring this up is because it's in the Bible too, these in between transitional seasons. So when you go through them, you're not the only one that's gone through it. And the Lord has helped other people through it, right? Um, and I really think that the reward on the other side is greater if you stick it out, right? And one of the times we discussed this, me and you, I had mentioned what usually happens is when you move somewhere new and you finally get accustomed and you mourn or grieve the previous life and you're like, man, I wish it were that way. Well, then another move's going to come. And then when you go to that place, you end up grieving the place you were just at.
Yeah.
So it also takes, counting your blessings around you
Mhm.
and taking full advantage of where you are and when you are,
Mhm.
I think, as well.
Yeah, for me, so this summer I had the opportunity to go to camp
Uh huh.
again for a week, and it kind of just reminded me of this like transitional season
Mm hmm.
too, because like I went last year, but then I got to come back and I
Mm
was
hmm.
like, it's the same but different.
Mm hmm.
And I was like,
Oh, at the camp? Yeah.
yes, because there were so many different people
Yeah.
and everybody
Mm hmm.
just move on, and
Yeah.
so um, but I was like, how can I make a difference this week?
Mm hmm.
And just like I was able to just pour into other people during
Mm
that
hmm.
week, and I just felt like the Lord was kind of changing my mindset
Yeah.
during that time, and I was like, that's the same with home.
Mm hmm.
Like, why not take advantage of
That's good.
where we're at now?
Yeah, definitely.
And there's a book that you let me use one time. It was like, I think it's called The Way of the Shepherd or
Oh,
something.
great book.
One of the quotes it said was like, it's always gonna be greener somewhere else.
Always.
The grass is
Always.
always greener somewhere
Mm
else.
hmm.
But looking right in front of you where you're at
Mm
and
hmm.
seeing that the grass is pretty green right here
Mm hmm.
too, I think it's important to
Yeah.
see that and just really pay attention to like what the Lord has given
Mm hmm.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And again, transitional seasons are temporary.
Yeah.
Now, what temporary means, that temporary can be weeks, months,
Yeah.
temporary can also be years. But in the grand scheme of things, when you look at your entire lifespan, yes, those 2 years may have felt like for an eternity, but compared to the rest of your life,
Mhm.
it was just, stick it out. Transitions are difficult, and everyone has to go through them. And that especially hits hard right out of college because, like you said, you're surrounded. And I remember we remember that too, me and Tori, because we had all these friends in Springfield. Because I love Springfield, I love Evangel. I want to make that clear, but I like to call Springfield a black hole because a lot of Evangel graduates, when they're not sure where to go or whatever, they end up staying in Springfield.
Mhm.
And that's true. I have a lot of friends who are not from there, but after Evangel, they just stuck around.
Mhm.
Springfield's great, okay? Evangel's great, but I didn't want to do that.
Yeah.
And then what did I do? I went
Use.
back to Springfield for 4 years.
Uh-huh.
And so I was going somewhere with this. What was it? Transitions, like I said, they're temporary. And so just, stick it out and the Lord will meet you on the other side. Actually, not on the other side. He's going to walk you through to the other side, rather. And so, I remember now. Tori and I had all these friends in Springfield, and then we moved here to Iowa. Actually, very similar to you, because she grew up here a little bit,
Huh.
but it was different. All her
Yeah.
friends were scattered or had moved on. Some were still here, thankfully, like Michaela's still around and
Mhm.
all that. But it was different, and we had to find new connections. And now we've done that. It took a while. And that first year we were here, I'll be very transparent with everyone listening or watching. It was very difficult for us emotionally. I mean, uh, we didn't have a place to live when we first got here. We lived with Tori's parents. I'm thankful for that. But man, talk about being in between, being homeless for a little bit. That's a difficult. I mean, you probably felt the same way because you were living with your parents and you have your own place now.
Yeah.
Um, that was another transition for you, a little mini transition, right? Living on
Yeah.
your own. But like I said, they're temporary and they're not. I'm not going to say they're easy because they're not. Let's be honest. But we get through them, and we have the grace of God that helps us through it. And so I hope your transitional season is either over or that you're just finally coming to peace with where you're at. And I pray that you and anyone watching or listening who's going through something similar just look around, count your blessings. Well, how did you word it when you were at camp?
I don't
You
remember
remember?
how
It
I
was
worded
beautiful. I'll go back.
it.
I'll edit it. No, but take advantage of where you're at and be
Yeah.
intentional with the people that the Lord has placed in your life.
Mhm.
That's the thing is too is I think Pastor Johnny says something like this from the pulpit that as bad as your life is, if you really sit down and start making a list of the blessings you have and the people you're around we really are all really blessed at where we are.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of there's probably the list of blessings has to really outweigh the list of difficulties no matter where you're at. And we had to do that for a while.
Mhm.
I mean, we talked about it before we moved here, and I thought Tori would be fine because her family's here. This is the church she was at, and that's not how it ended up. We're great now,
Mhm.
because we're past that transitional period, but it was not easy, and it took prayer and it took faith to get through it, and so yeah. Well, Hannah, thank you for giving us your time.
Thank
I'm
you.
sure you'll be back. I'm sure there's other topics we can talk on. We could probably do a whole hour on media and the church today. Which quickly before we go, what do you think is the most different about the church of today versus the church you grew up in? I know there's a lot you could say about that, but
I feel like media has just came a long way since then.
yes,
Like I think about when I was in kids church, we had I don't even know what it's called, but it's like the slide projectors where you put like a see-through piece of paper or
transparency,
whatever. Yeah.
overhead projector,
Yes, that's
yeah,
what it is.
yeah,
And seeing the lyrics
yep,
go on the screen like
yeah,
that to like it,
software,
yeah,
pro presenter.
who would have thought?
I know,
Not me. It's just kind of funny to see how the Lord works too, cause like I went to, um, VBS kind of a thing,
yeah,
and my mom signed me up for a PowerPoint like skill, and I was like, why am I doing this
yeah,
at the time? But now it's
that's
kind of
funny.
cool to look
Yeah,
back at and be like, the Lord was just getting me prepared.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, it's just kind of cool to
Yeah.
see. Now we have Canva,
Oh my gosh.
lifesaver.
Canva does everything. Canva is amazing. You taught me a lot of Canva too. I thought I knew, and then I was like, "What? You can do that?" It's amazing what Canva can do. I wish I had known how to work that when I was a teacher because I didn't know how to make like graphics
So
for. Now I do. Now I'll tell you this. Now, if the Lord ever opens a door for me to teach again, man, my promoting game is a different level. 'Cause I didn't know how to do that.
Uh-huh.
Canva makes so much, and I just feel like the technology and the software just gets easier and easier to work.
Yeah.
Like making a reel on Instagram and on Facebook, like the way the things you can do is just mind blowing. Like you used to have to do all that on your own.
Yeah.
Like for example, the captions
Yeah.
are extremely scary accurate on Instagram. It says do you want to transcribe or whatever, and it does it, and I'm like,
Uh-huh.
oh my gosh, like it's very accurate.
Yeah.
And I love that we're using it to spread the gospel, to spread hope and healing.
Mhm.
It's really cool. And I think I said this to the board when I was presenting your position. I said in this day and age, someone to do this is vitally important. I said it is just as important as like whatever. I gave an example, and I said if we're wanting to see growth, or we're wanting to see more connections or intentionality, like we definitely need someone to fill this. And you have gone above and beyond. We love all that you've done. I'm excited to see what else is coming, and it's fun to help you out too when I have time.
It's so much fun.
Video content and pictures and
Yeah.
uh, a little. I'm not sure when this will post, but for our Centennial weekend, you're putting together a little something special for
Mhm.
pre-service. That's all I'll say, and that's been fun to watch.
Yeah.
And you've gotten to see a lot of old footage, right, for our
Oh yeah.
centennial. What was it? What's that like?
It's my favorite part of doing this was being. I had to figure out how to get from VHS to
To
digital,
digital?
and like nobody explained it. I had to actually sit down and try and figure it out, and I watched VHS as a kid,
Right.
but like having to remember how it worked
That's
was
funny.
hard. And so after watching a few videos, figured out
Figured it
how
out.
to do that, and it's so cool. Like there was a member in our church that she's now a senior
Uh-huh.
in high school, and it was her baby dedication. And
Ugh,
so having that on a VHS tape
yeah, that's
and
wild.
like seeing that,
Yeah.
it was so cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then that's another program that's come in clutch is OBS.
Oh,
Another
yes.
great, well, I have a love and hate relationship with it. We actually
For
use
being
OBS for recording this podcast, but it's,
For being free.
yeah, it
It's
does a lot.
pretty good.
It's pretty amazing. It was funny too. I was telling Tori, like, I didn't know how to work any of this stuff when I first got here,
Yeah.
but you're forced to, thankfully you knew how to work Premiere and OBS. Do you know about OBS or not yet till you got here?
No, I didn't know about it until you started
Yeah,
using
and
it.
Ben is the one that introduced me to that.
Yeah.
And I was like, what is this? And I was like, oh my gosh, you can do a lot.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, you just, and that's the other thing too is, yes, Hannah is an expert at cameras and lighting and stuff like that, but she's still learning too, right? Constantly
For
new
sure.
things. And
Yeah.
you also do research on, like, you see, I'm assuming you follow a ton of churches' social media to get inspiration and
Yeah.
ideas,
Yeah.
which every church is different. We touched on that. So, like, the way this church promotes things, it may not work at this church, or
Yep.
the way this church has a community page, it may not work in this church.
Mhm.
Another thing you've learned a lot too is now that we have a bilingual congregation, it's been challenging, but also cool to see how you fit. So for those who don't know, we have a bilingual service every Sunday 11:30, and we project our sermon notes in both languages. And it's been sometimes it's challenging based on what the graphic is, how to get both up there to fit and how to make it legible. But you've done great with that. That's been fun to watch too. And thanks for your help with that. But yeah, looking forward to the future. Looking forward to our centennial. Again, I'm not sure when this may post centennial. I don't know, but it's been a crazy time, and the fall is always very busy, and there's always events. And if there's an event, you want pictures
Yeah.
and footage of events. So be ready for a crazy time, and then Christmas Eve. That's always crazy too. But I'm
so good.
thankful you're here because you really help. I remember this is the last thing I'll say. I remember I was getting ready for Easter or maybe it was Christmas Eve, and I was like, my gosh, what did I do before Hannah got here? Because she's been such a big help and giving suggestions and stuff like that. So really, thank you for all you do. I'm sure you'll be back. You're always around, and this podcast hopefully won't go anywhere anytime soon. So thank you so much for your help. Thanks everyone for listening and or watching. We'll see you on the next episode.
Thanks for listening, and be sure to follow Restoration Podcast on Spotify and Apple. If you're watching on YouTube, please like, comment, and subscribe.